This is another episode of our podcast. It's just myself today, and it's story time. So, this story is just really, there are a lot of lessons to be kind of like drawn from it, but it's kind of like, something that I'll leave it up to you to draw as many lessons as you can, in addition to the ones that I'm going to share with you. So, there was this lady, a neighbor just moved in, and this neighbor is a person who actually washes their clothes and they hang them, right? Something pretty old for a lot of you guys out there. I still do it. So anyway, so one day, and obviously they hang them outside, so fresh air so they can dry. She looks out of the window and she's seeing her neighbor hanging the clothes, and she makes the comment to her husband. She says, "Oh my God, she washed her laundry, but it's still dirty. And look at her, she's hanging dirty laundry." The husband kind of like, looks at his wife, walks away. The next day, the neighbor does the same thing. And this thing lasted for a few days. And then one day, the neighbor did all white. And that's when actually the stains became more apparent to the wife. And she's like, "Oh my God, these are white clothes. Like, couldn't the neighbor just see how bad they look? I mean, the stains, I can see them from here." And she went on and on. The following day, the neighbor hangs the clothes. The wife again looks out of the window, and she calls her husband. She's like, "Oh my God, finally, the clothes are clean. Finally, like, how long did it take her to realize that, what you're doing is wrong? You're washing them, you're wasting time, and you're hanging them, and you're just like, they're out there, people can see them, and when she was done, the husband looks at her and he said, "Honey, when you were sleeping, I cleaned the window. Now the window is clean, and you can see that the neighbor's clothes are actually clean." Now, obviously, that's not a real story, but it's a story that usually we tell to kind of like, reflect on our reality as humans, right? Now, this lady, the main lesson, and then I'm going to go to actually some smaller lessons or kind of like, extra lessons that usually people don't really pay attention to. The main lesson is, obviously, she was seeing the stains through her window, meaning the problem was with her, not the neighbor. How many of us actually have that problem, right? We look at others, we assess them, we comment about them and all that. And really, it's not that there's something wrong with them, but there's something wrong with us. We are the ones that actually need to be fixed, right? That's the main lesson. That's the main lesson that usually, obviously, I added a little bit to the story, like the white clothing, and I'll tell you why I added that. That was something I added to the original story, okay? So that's the first thing. Let's take a step back and always see what we need to work on as far as we're concerned within ourselves, not how are people seeming to look, to us. That's very crucial. To be honest, one of the biggest problems that actually I personally deal with when it comes to dealing with people, you could clearly see the person needs to really take a step back and reassess. And I know, because now somebody's thinking, well, who am I to judge? I'll give you an example. This is a very recent case that actually I dealt with. When you have the same person, now remember, that lady was looking throughout the same window, even though the neighbor was hanging different clothing every day, but the stains were there. It didn't matter how often the neighbor changed the clothing, the laundry, the stains were there. So there are some people that they could deal with a lot of people, and there's, according to them, everyone is wrong, but they're always right. That's actually one typical example to really fit into this story. But unfortunately, those individuals don't have someone to clean the window for them, if that makes sense. Even when somebody approaches the window to clean it, they might actually label that person. because they're just refusing to change. And for them, they see that there's nothing wrong with them and everything wrong with everybody else. So let's be a little bit careful and be honest with ourselves, and always take that step back and say, okay, that person's wrong, the other person's wrong, the third person's wrong, the fourth person's wrong, everybody's wrong and I'm right all the time. There's gotta be something that I have to look into and really kind of like be honest with myself and say, maybe after all, there's something that I need to look from within instead of looking out and judging people, right? The other thing is, if you notice, this lady, she saw the stains the first time. She didn't move on with life. She got hooked to the window every day that she wakes up. She wants to see, what else can she find? Are the stains still there, right? And she would also make the comment, like, she's so certain about her assessment that she would say it out loud to her husband. It's like, oh my God, look, again and again, right? So that's another thing. Don't keep looking and trying to find mistakes within people, or even worse, trying to, out loud mention that and kind of like expose them to others. Don't, right? If you see something, let's say you're right, let's say your window is clean, right? Stop peeking and poking into these things. Don't peek out and don't poke into these things. Just move on with life, right? There are a lot of things that you could be doing in your life instead of kind of like, trying to, stalk people and spy on them and try to find more information about them and try to be the one to see the mistakes and highlight them and, publicize it. That's wrong. Just don't do it, right? The other thing that I added are the white clothing. For some people, and forgive me for saying this, and honestly, if you take it personal, that means it's good. That means you're feeling something. There are some people that when others shine, when others, and I want you to think about the white clothing, right? Usually we think about purity, cleanliness, and things like that, right? That's why a lot of people, when they do their whites, they do them by themselves, right? Because they don't want, other colors to stain them or anything else. And we wash them more often and so on and so forth. So when you have the whites, right, metaphorically, somebody is doing great. Somebody is, especially if they become visible within the community, within your group, right? People recognize the great work that that person is doing, great contribution, what have you, right? They become apparent. They make you feel now more inferior to them. And sometimes you retaliate because of your shortcomings. Be careful. Be careful. You're not to compare yourself to anyone. Somebody might shine and might be the white laundry, right, in one area. But if you just let them be and even celebrate that, you might be the clean and white laundry in a different area. But you're so focused on them, your stains become more apparent, you become more outrageous, you lose energy because you're wasting all of it in that area, and you lose. That person doesn't lose, right? The other lesson. A lot of us hear comments coming from people, and I always say, take it in a very objective way. What does that mean? I hear a comment, I take a step back. I don't really care who said it, and I try to assess myself. Do I actually have it? Right? Do I have that issue that this person highlighted? Have I heard this comment before? Because if you hear it more often, then it's worth looking into. Meaning, look inside and say, is it something that is going to make me a better version of myself? Yes. If yes, just go ahead and work on that. But also there are times, because a lot of people overthink what they hear about themselves. Somebody says this about you and you're like, that's it, I have it. And I'm a bad person. No, don't be emotional, but at the same time, don't ignore. I know it's a difficult process to go through, but with time, when you have enough confidence, you'll be able to use that tool to say, whatever I hear, I'm going to try to assess it objectively. But what I mean also is, remember, some people may judge you through their own experience. And if you keep changing because this person said this about you or that person said that about you, then you will not be you. You will be what others feel you should be. And here's a key: it doesn't mean that you're going to be right, because again, they're judging you through their experience, right? So just be careful with that. Just like the lady who's looking through the window. Imagine if the neighbor somehow was to hear that comment. The neighbor would go back, wash the laundry again, comes out, oh, it's the same. Go back, right? That's not right, right? Because realistically, there was nothing wrong with the laundry. There was something wrong with the window that the lady was looking through. Does that make sense? So hopefully we can learn through that. The last one is the husband. If you notice, the husband realized if he was to leave his wife to herself, then this will be an endless process and he himself will suffer. Because remember, she was telling him these things, right? He was the person having to deal with this, having to hear these things. But the interesting part, he knew what was wrong with the wife, but it took him long enough to actually clean the window. And this is what I always talk about, especially with the kids. Peer pressure is real, but there's also a positive aspect to it. Help others realize that maybe what you're doing is not what is supposed to be happening. It's not right, right? Help them clean the window for them, right? As much as you can and as often as you can. Because some people, unfortunately, you clean the window and they might stain it themselves and you got to clean it again. And there, of course, there's time when you have to just walk away. But that's not our, topic today. But try to be the person who holds that, wipe or paper towel, whatever, to kind of clean that window. So the person that you care about gets to see better, right? And judges less, hopefully. So again, I hope you guys can draw other lessons. Maybe if you were able to actually draw more lessons, please make sure that you comment. We would love to hear from you, because I love it when I share a story or lesson and then the audience, they're able to actually share more and are able to see it from a different angle. So we would love to, to hear from you guys. Again, subscribe, share, and like, and we look forward to seeing you guys in our next episodes. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.